Hello, hello, and welcome to Saturday Soundbites. I'm your host, Veronica Sofer. So thrilled to be here with you because we get to talk about all the things I am passionate about, including your visibility strategy, advertising, marketing, public relations, and networking, copywriting, all the things that you need to tell your story. Because at the end of the day, we are all here to share our stories, share our expertise, and grow our businesses and our brand. So we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a second. But before we do, I want to remind you to hit subscribe if you are listening on the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, drop us some comments, and my guest and I will certainly come back and answer any questions you have and engage with you. So, with that, I'm going to bring on my guest today. We have Miss Whitney Huff joining us. Hello and welcome.
Hi, so great to be here.
So excited about our topic today. We're going to be talking about marketing and copywriting and content development and all those things that some of us are trying to learn from scratch. Some of us are trying to get better at, and some of us are trying to become masters at. So I'm really excited about our conversation today, Whitney.
Yeah, me too.
So before we dive right in, why don't you share with us a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are?
Definitely. Okay, so I actually kind of got started in marketing. So I'd had some experience in marketing when I was in college. I kind of started off in marketing and then I ended up in PR because I was like, I have experience in PR or marketing. Let's learn about PR. And so I got my bachelor's and master's in PR. I started at a startup company for healthcare certifications doing their PR and social media. And to be 100% real, after about a year there, kind of got a little bored. I was like,
Ah,
I want to help more people.
mhm.
This is fun, but I could have more fun. I didn't necessarily want to go into an agency setting because that felt very like everybody's against each other for projects and like all of that. Not my vibe. So I started freelancing, and after a couple years of freelancing, I went full time in my business at the end of 2021. So I finished my first year full time last year, and now I'm in my second.
That's so exciting. And just the idea of being able to identify this isn't working for me, this structure isn't the right one for me. And you just took power there and you just dove right in, which I applaud you for.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about really narrowing down your skill set, because some of us are great communicators verbally, and then others of us are not. We're better writers. So, how did you figure that out for yourself?
Yeah. So funny you ask. That was actually a wide transition for me. So when I
Mhm.
started freelancing, I actually was just like, someone needed social media help, so I started doing social media, and then they found out I had a PR degree, so they were like, "Can you write some press releases?" Sure. That ended into like writing websites, doing all kinds of stuff, designing, etc. That gets very overwhelming, especially as like a side hustle, which granted all marketing departments in general, even at bigger companies, there shouldn't just be one person doing that.
Right. True. Very true.
It's very different sections of your brain. So I kind of realized like what I enjoy most is writing. And honestly, I think while there is some overlap in communication and writing, I definitely think it takes almost like a special quality to write like website copy and content and stuff just because it's conversational, but it's more so hand holding them through the process. Whereas if
Yes.
you're directly communicating with somebody, you might not
Mhm.
need to handhold as much. But since they're reading it, it's all about perception. So you want to make sure that it's direct enough that it makes sense, but also not so direct that it doesn't come off as friendly.
Mhm. Right. And that's probably a balance that's really difficult because we want to remain professional, but we also want to remain approachable and
Right.
relatable. So how do you work with people to find that voice? Cuz it's not so obvious sometimes.
Right. No, for sure. So it really depends on what kind of business or brand you're working with. I would say, now this is might sound interesting. I would almost say like personal brands like service providers or online service providers or like speakers, coaches, consultants, etc. I would almost say that that is harder to do than someone who owns a small business, just
Mm-hmm.
because people that own the small business, if they like sell things or something that doesn't necessarily directly involve them, they can more so separate themselves from their business versus someone even like myself that's a copywriter. Like, I am my business, but my business is not me.
Ooh, yeah. That's a distinction. I like that.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those things where you're gonna have to separate out your messaging a little bit. Like, I'm very, to give an example, like, I'm a very laid back, relaxed person, but when I show up for my messaging within my business, like, I am the professional, I am the expert. So I can't be laid back because I have a process, like, my business runs on a certain speed. I can't be that super laid back tone that I am conversationally.
Yeah.
So it's very, I would say that's almost harder, especially when you're writing for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what's your process for working with people? I mean, we'll talk about your offerings too, but how do you help that? Maybe they're not a service provider. Maybe they do work for a small company and they're trying to find the voice and that brand. How do you work with people and help them make that distinction? Because I think some of us get either too we get too critical of the process and then
Right.
we lose that creativity. And I feel like if we had someone like Whitney helping us, what would that look like?
Right. Yeah. So now granted, I've been in this a few years. So like I've kind of experimented with all kinds of processes, but I would say that every copywriter, content writer, whoever you work with, or even if you're doing it your own self, you need to start off with a baseline of strategy. So you need to set those messaging guidelines, kind of what is your message, who is your ideal client or customer, what are their pain points, what does your service or product help them solve,
Yeah.
and honestly put it on, like, put all that on paper. So as you start writing, you can start making sure that all of these questions are implemented and answered within your copy or content. I would say between that too, one thing that I've done that really helps me, and maybe I'm giving away too many secrets here, is from that messaging and that strategy, I go into an outline. It's always easier, even for me as a writer, to write from an outline. Like, okay,
Hmm.
this will flow
Hmm.
into this, and this will flow into this, and this will flow into this. And then I can see where the holes are. What am I missing before I write 600, 700, 800 words for a
Hmm.
page of
Hmm.
website copy?
No, that's a great gem. I love that. I love that you dropped that there because I think some of us get overwhelmed by the process and you've got
Yeah,
your Google sheet up and the cursor's flashing and you're like, okay, where do I even start? But it's almost like if you go back to the basics and you think about what we learned in school, an outline really can help you frame the context so that you can capture everything.
right, exactly. And
Mm.
it's kind of just you take things step by step. You can't go, some people are like, "Hey, I'm going to write or I'm going to write my website today so I can get it up." And they go straight literally to whatever website platform they're in and writing on that platform. And if you can do that and it ends up great, I'm going to applaud you, but definitely I recommend starting with the basics, start with a strategy and build from there.
Mhm. Mhm. And what would you say to people who maybe are hyper focused on the salesy verbiage and I know that your formula is probably pretty successful or else you wouldn't be in business the way you have been, but I know some people really just want to focus on landing that sale and landing the sale and they lose sight of the other parts of it. What do you suggest they think about?
Yeah, so honestly, my biggest thing is connection. Whether you own a small business that's product based or service based, connection sells. So find that commonality between you and your target client customer and speak to that. Don't
Mhm.
include all this sleazy like advertising, marketing language, etc. Like, people see through that. Like, we're
They
in
do.
2023.
Yeah.
People know it by now. This is not the 90s. Like, people see right through that, and that doesn't come off as genuine, especially for small business owners. Like, I know you're trying to grow your business quickly and you don't want to be a small business forever, but the way that you become not a small business is to create those connections and have people like refer you and talk about you, etc.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things you touched on was relatable, being relatable. And that's the beauty of storytelling. And you can
Totally.
flow that into your website without being too salesy. You can really connect with people by sharing a little bit about yourself or your business or your journey along the way.
Totally. And if you're looking to learn more about storytelling, one book that I recommend to basically all business owners, whether you plan on writing your own content or copy or just to even talk about your business, is Building a Story Brand. I believe it's by Donald Miller.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a great book. Highly recommend. And
Oh,
then
I'm
he
gonna
also has another book, Marketing Made Simple, if you need marketing help too. But definitely, if you're into storytelling, Building a Story Brand is, I highly recommend.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I will definitely put that in the show notes because that's not one I've read, and I need to add it to my shelf as well. So, Whitney, what are some of the different ways that you work with people? I know that um, some of us try to DIY our websites and get those, email sequences all put together, and then we throw our hands up and we just end up calling someone like you. What should we be looking for when we're looking for a copywriter?
Right, for sure. So I definitely say there's so I work primarily with website copy and with blogs. So I think there's almost two different things you're looking for.
Hmm.
So, well, kind of. We'll get there.
Okay.
So website copy is definitely when you're looking, well, you might have had a DIY site. You may have even hired someone off of like a Fiverr or an Upwork, or someone a little bit newer to copywriting, whatever that kind of looks like. But you're looking to make a big business move, whether that's getting new branding entirely, just getting a entire new website with working with a designer, etc. So that's usually where my full copy package is. I also have a smaller copy package because I love working with small businesses who maybe they you might be a little bit in between, or you might just be someone who's starting a second business, but your second business is
Sure.
still new, but you still have a little money in the bank, whatever that looks like. So I have that package as well. So that's where they're at. And then I also write blogs. So typically my blog clients either think they have a great website, they just want more consistent quality content to put on because that helps SEO, which is that's one of my favorite things is SEO, and I could talk for days upon that. Or they're, you know, honestly, they're not quite sure like what quality website copy could do for them.
Right.
And blogs are a little bit cheaper, it's a little bit lower risk. You put it on there, you kind of see what that SEO traction looks like before committing to full website copy and or design too.
Mhm, mhm. I love that, and you mentioned SEO, and before we move on, I want to ask, your thoughts on how important that is because we hear that the way Meta and some of the other, Google Analytics and all the different tools that people are using, that those algorithms change, and with AI coming in, people are kind of overwhelmed with a
Yeah.
all the content that needs to be developed. Where does SEO play in all of that?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the more Google updates that come out, the one thing is consistent. They are cracking down on what they deem to not be quality content. And so, not to talk bad on AI, because obviously AI helps. Please don't take something straight from AI and put it on your website.
Yes, bad. Don't do it.
Yes. Yes. I'm saying that so nicely. Please don't. Please read over it. Please double check it. Um, because I've been curious enough to like try it out, kind of see what it looks like. It's definitely there's a term called keyword stuffing, which means it overuses keywords. Google finds that. Google,
Oh,
like, they will knock you down for keyword stuffing. It's one of the like there's like black hat SEO topics, which that's a whole nother land. And I call it Google's little naughty list because that's literally what it is, where you cannot rank for anything. So definitely SEO is super important. I hit mostly on keywords and like on page since I write. But having an SEO strategy as a whole is so important for your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think people should, if they don't know what that is and they're not utilizing it, they need to start doing a little bit of research on it. So, Whitney, what is the best way for people to work with you? Tell us a little bit about some of the programs you've got going on.
Yeah, totally. So I have my full website copy package that comes with strategy. It comes with actually an SEO keyword map too, which is unique. I don't see a lot of copywriters doing this. It more so comes with a full SEO package with an SEO specialist. So that's going to cover basically like your URL slugs, your meta descriptions, things like that, to where it's not necessarily on your website SEO keywords, but it's bonus.
Gotcha.
And then it also comes with some blog topics. So that way, any keywords that I can't use on the page of your website, you can take those and use them to blogs. I like to give things away too. So I always like to put like ideas that you can include in here and things like that. It comes with 5 pages of website copy, SEO friendly. I do all the SEO keyword research. And it comes with 2 complimentary rounds of revision as well with a brand voice guide. So you have that strategy written down for you so you can pass it on to anybody doing your social media or, VA work or whatever that looks like for your business. So I have that package as well as a smaller package that is going to be more of like a 1-page website where you have everything you need. But it's also comes with strategy. So you're all set with a mini brand voice guideline as well. So that way you're set and you can get started making money in your business. So that way you can escalate the process of updating and upgrading your brand.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect for people who are starting out or who aren't quite sure what they're doing. So, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, totally. And then I also have a blog retainer with 2 options. So it's going to have a bi-weekly blog, so every other week, or a weekly blog with the option of also having me put them in your website and posting them for you. So that way, literally, once they're approved by the business owner, they're all set to go.
Yep, turnkey. That's
Yes,
awesome.
exactly.
That's so important, especially when you're trying to juggle. Some of us, are still in full-time jobs and they're doing
Right.
their side hustle and they're growing their businesses. Some of us are running multi-million dollar companies, and so we have teams. And sometimes those little tasks get pushed to the side. So having someone like you is really helpful. Well, Whitney, I have enjoyed chatting so much. I loved your insight, especially on AI and what to be careful for. How can people connect with you?
Totally. So I am on Instagram and Facebook at Words with Whitney. And then I have a website, wordswithwhitney.co, so just CO. And I recently, as of like yesterday, made a TikTok page. So I'm going to be doing some TikTok audits,
There you go.
or not TikTok audits, like website audits on TikTok. And that is also at Words with Whitney.
I love it so much. And we will make sure that all of your contact is in the show notes, as well as those book recommendations, because everyone needs to stretch their mind and learn as much as they can. Thank you, Whitney, so much for being on.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, make sure you connect with Whitney. Her contact information is definitely in the show notes. Using words to tell your story is just another great way for you to connect with people. And having really tight copywriting is so important. So, whether you're doing it yourself or you're outsourcing it to someone else, make sure it's on point and it's meeting your goals and connecting to your entire visibility strategy. So, with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of Saturday Soundbites. And if you are watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, drop us some comments, and Whitney Huff and I will be sure to circle back and connect with you. With that, I'm going to wrap up by sending you lots of positive energy